now it's time to be dangerous. Now it's time to get risky. Now it's time to truly find out what you're made of and what you could achieve. Now it's time to truly find out how many lives you can impact. Now it's time to find out what you were destined to become.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Raw Minds Podcast, where we cut through the noise and get real about life, pain, and growth. I'm your host, Eric, and today we got someone who knows how to lead life when it hits hard. We have James Robbins, is a best-selling author, speaker, leadership coach, and he's helped more than 50,000 leaders rise through the classic book 9 Minutes on Monday, which was named the Global and Mail's #1 business book of the year. And now he's back with his brand new book, The Call of Climb, and it's already shaking up what leadership can and should look like. Deep, bold, and meaningful, definitely. And I think that's huge. And James isn't just telling a story of success. He's handing you the tools to find strength in struggles, purpose in pain, and real grit in life. If this episode hits you, or maybe touches something in you, don't just sit there. Drop a comment, smash a follow, and share this with someone who needs the message. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. So let's get raw with James Robbins. Welcome to Raw Minds, my friend.
Eric, thank you. Great to be with Raw Minds and your community. Yeah. So thanks for having me here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. And right off the bat, I like to do this. So I'd like to, if you could plug your books and your website and everything that you're doing.
Yeah, right on. My book actually comes out this week, well, depending on the date. It's called The Call to Climb. And I've been working on it for a long time, but people can go find it at iwillclimb.com or on any major bookseller. But that would be my only plug that I want to make.
Yeah, perfect. And I'll put that in the description too, so you guys can check it out. The description, the link will be right there, and it'll head you right over there. I would like to just get right into it and see where did it all start for you? Like, what sparked your passion for this leadership and growth?
What sparked my passion? I was actually working in ministry for a lot of years, which I didn't ever think I would do, but you know how life is sometimes. It puts you on a path you didn't expect. I was working in ministry, and that's where I really cut my teeth on leadership, because you got to lead paid staff. You got to lead this massive group of volunteers. You can't fire them. You can't kick them out. You just got to figure out how to do it. And at the same time, I had some bosses during that time. I mean, I had some good ones, but I also had some ones that were not great leaders. And part of the reason they were not great was because of the culture of the organization. In other words, they were actually good people, but the culture of the organization made them lead in a way that was actually toxic. And that sort of just had an impact on me. And I thought, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to have people feel like this. And it was during that time I started, it was more like a side gig. I started teaching leadership at conferences. And the more I taught, the more people wanted me to come to their company and talk. And I think it caught on because I brought a different perspective, right? I came in there and it's all about people first. Right? Love your people, Take care of your people, invest in your people, and then, expect your people to do something great.
Yeah, like I find like I'm in a leadership role myself and have been like in my past work. And I find that, like you treat people how you want to be treated, even if in the work environment, especially in construction. And let's face it, man, construction's, sometimes there's no hold bars, right? But I mean, like, I find that, you treat people with respect, people want to work for you more, they'll want to, you create a good environment. People show up, they're not hating like, oh no, I got to go to work today. They actually want to go. And it's like almost like you make it like high school, but at the same time, get your work done, and do it properly. There's that balance you have to have. I find that is huge though. And a lot of workplaces lacking that.
For sure. A good way to look at it, I tell my clients this, it's sort of like a bank account. Like all relationships are in some form of value exchange. And when the value exchange gets out of line, out of kilter, that's when relationship problems happen. So it happens in a marriage, happens with friendships. But in the workplace, when you think about it, for those of you listening who are leaders or, one day you want to be leaders or run your own company, it can be as simple as deposits and withdrawals. So just like your own account, right? Like you need more deposits than you want withdrawals or you go overdrawn. Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same in the workplace. You got to make deposits. Deposits are caring about your staff, telling them they've done a great job, helping them feel a sense of purpose at work, letting them work in a way that's aligned with their strengths. These are things that would be deposits. And then, of course, you've got to take withdrawals, which are, hey, how come you didn't get this website done by the deadline? How come you didn't get this done? Hey, I need you to stay late today. Those are withdrawals, and they're fine as long as there's deposits to cover them. And so when you approach a leadership from that perspective, let's say you're working at a manufacturing plant and you're a supervisor, and you come in and you find out that the air conditioning has been knocked out and it's hot as Hades in the plant. Okay, well, that's like a lot of withdrawals that are going on with the people. So, okay, let's cover that. I need to cover that with deposits. So I'm going to be extra appreciative today. I'm going to be extra supportive today. And just that metaphor alone, honestly, if you just out deposit your withdrawals, that's going to put you in probably the top 15% of leaders right there.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I mean, when I was a subcontractor myself and I had my own crew, when it was hot out, I'd go out, get some Gatorade or like popsicles or something, and it's appreciation. You're giving back. It makes your crew feel good, or your coworkers or whatever it may be. It makes them feel good, right? And then at the same time, it will boost productivity too. Sorry, I can't speak right now. Because they're in good moods and they want to work harder for you. So
Exactly.
definitely.
Those are deposits. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. I want to ask, what was one story early in your journey that shaped you to how you became a leader today?
I grew up on a small cattle ranch in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. I was a shy, introverted, redheaded, freckle-faced kid who couldn't get a girlfriend. I grew up with a certain amount of just insecurities that was not enough. I ended up playing football, which helped kind of counter some of that earlier deficits in confidence. But I don't know that I ever pursued leadership. I sort of just got passionate about something and pushed myself into it. And then someone tapped me on the shoulder. Hey, why don't you come in? But in terms of formative influences, actually not to become a leader, but one thing that shaped me as a leader, I was well into working, but I remember being at this conference in California. I was so depressed at this time in my life, and it was because of the culture I was working in, because of the leaders. And I remember standing on this balcony overlooking this golf course. It was this beautiful green place, and I felt so trapped because I was still pretty young, like maybe 25. So I felt like I couldn't leave, even though I could have. And I just felt so terrible, and that was bleeding over into my family. And I thought, man, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to let my work impact, how my family feels around me. And at least in that moment, I decided, like, I never want people to feel like this who work for me. Not that I knew all the answers back then. I just knew I don't want this, and I don't want people to have this. And so that definitely shaped me.
That's beautiful, man. And that's like, it's not the same path, but it's the same thing. So like how Raw Minds was, right? 2 years ago, my fiance passed away on Father's Day, and I just felt super alone, and I felt just, really shitty. Let's face it, right? And I didn't want others to feel like that. And I built Raw Minds here, and so it's the same aspect, and I find that like a lot of great things, I was just talking about this the other day, is a lot of great things come from pain, which I call from pain to power. And if you find the lessons, and you actually really work on yourself and want to push forward, beautiful things can happen, and you use that power, and turn it into, or that pain and turn it into that power. And it's a beautiful thing. And look what you're doing. Look what I'm doing. Look what hundreds of thousands of other people are doing, right? It's amazing.
You're totally right. I mean, your show and the way you're giving back now, the way you're giving strength to people only exists because you experience pain. And, I think it's a beautiful thing. It's like this book, The Call to Climb. I actually had the idea for this a long time ago, and I even submitted a proposal to a couple of publishers, and they rejected it. Even the publisher that just is going to publish it, they rejected it like 6 years ago. But it's such a different book now. The amount of pain and suffering that had to be added in for this thing to be ready. Before, it was very prescriptive, and here's the 5 steps and the 7 steps, and now it's a lot deeper. So I'm proud of it. But kind of back to your point, this would not exist if it wasn't for a whole lot.
Definitely. And I want to actually get in. I got some stuff I want to ask you about your book, but there's actually one other thing since we're on this topic. I was on a podcast called Dad Talk, or no, Men Thrive Daily. Great guy. And he kind of put in a, sorry, I got a cat here on my mic, kind of put in a perspective too, is like, like he had a brain injury and he was asked, would you go through all of that again? All the hardships, the brain injury, all of that, because he's helping other people now, right? And he's like, was it really a tragedy that what you went through, when actually you came out and you're helping people now? And then he kind of like, it was a, like, makes you think, like, whoa, okay, hold on, it's kind of a deep thing here. It's like, would you go through all of that pain again to be able to do these things and help these people again? And it was a really deep question, man. So actually I would like to know what your take on that.
Well, I was interviewing a guy, actually a Canadian guy, who won a gold medal for Canada in the Special Olympics. And I asked him the question, had you not, lost your leg, would you have a gold medal around your neck? And his response actually was great, because he said, well, I'm not sure. I would have liked to have competed full-bodied enabled, and I would have liked to think that I could have done that as well. So he didn't have this either or, like, yeah, I only have a gold medal because of that. But he was like, it's more spoke to him as the person. And I think that's maybe the other layer to this. For you, let's say you didn't go through some pain, maybe Raw Minds wouldn't exist, but maybe something else would exist because of just the kind of person you are, that you eventually would have found a way to use your gifts to help. But this vehicle that you're using, yeah, of course, this is the result of tough times.
Yeah. I think I mean, me personally, I don't really know how to answer that question when he asked me. You know what I mean? It's hard because, I mean, that would have been losing a lot of people in my life, right? Not just my fiance, but a lot of people, because 1 degree off, you know what I mean? That 1 degree will change. So, I mean, you want to change something in your world, just change one thing, 1 degree, and eventually that ship is going to be off course and going somewhere else, not where it is, right? So it's hard to say. It's a really hard question. It really is, right? It had me stumped there. But I do want to get into your book here. I do have a question for you. So Riley, in your story, he's a wrestler that aligns with purpose, right? How much of that, Riley, is you, and how much is of everyone who questions how much of everybody that crosses their path as well as a little bit of you? Is this, yeah?
There's a lot. Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of Riley's story that's my story. Some things exactly were my story. Other parts of Riley's story are my kids' stories, my friends' stories, and there's a universal story in there as well, where people struggle to, what am I supposed to be doing with my life, and is this it, and are these dreams my dreams, or am I living out my father's dream? And having the courage to go your own path, and I think that's a difficult thing. So, but yeah, quick answer, lots of Riley's story is my story.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. So the Call to Climb opens with a vivid story of being lost in Bolivia. How much does that reflect of your internal state of feeling lost in your own experience?
I think for me, I think I went through a lot of my life lost, but not knowing it. And that's sort of like Riley at the beginning of the book. Like, you can see that they are getting lost, but they don't quite see that yet until they finally realize, like, oh, I'm not where I should be. I think that's a common thing. Yeah, for me, it's not like I ever came out and said, man, I'm lost, but it came out in other ways. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, or I don't want to do this. Like, it's easy for us to know what we don't want to do. Right? Ask anyone, hey, what do you not want to do? Here's the list. What do you want to do, though? What do you want? And that's where people have a tough time answering that question. Like, what do you mean, what do I want? No, what do you want? Like, what am I allowed to want? Or like, what do you want in life? And it's like people haven't stopped long enough to clarify that.
Well, I find too is like, there's that exercise where you can write down like all the bad things and all the good things. Sorry, drop something there. And then you see what outweighs the good, outweighs the bad. And usually, it's a lot of bad things are on people's lists. And I'm talking about like just in people's lives, what they want to change about their life. You know what I mean? And there is a lot, right? but there's a lot of good things that people are in their life, but they don't see it. Like even just waking up, that's a great thing, but people don't, because they think that's just an everyday thing, or having a family or whatever it may be, right? It's the little things too that we have to push out there too. I believe, anyways. I think that we're lacking.
Gratitude will pull you out of a lot of dark places, and it has for me. And as knowing as much as I know about change, transformational, personal development, there's still times where I just get stuck in a hole and nothing is working, and it feels like, yeah, I'm in the boiler room of the Titanic and it's going down,
Mhm.
and there's just no way out. And it's in those moments that I will remember, like, wait a minute, okay, even here, like, find something you're grateful for. And they almost seem pathetic now when you look at the list. Like, it's like, okay, well, like, I'm alive. Okay, my kid's not on drugs. Like, it's just like the bar is so low, but at least it's gratitude, and it's a shift in focus from
Yeah.
what you don't have to what you have. And it's just powerful. There's a reason why there's all this research on gratitude. It really is a magic bullet.
Yeah, and I think that goes also with like goals too, right? Goals are huge, like having small goals. And a big one, huge, and I live by this, is make your bed every morning. And that's one goal. You, as soon as you wake up, you smash the goal. So now you're starting your day off right, and you're winning right off the bat. I mean, let's face it, this life is crazy and it's getting more crazier. So shit does happen along the way, right, and during the day. But I mean, it's also perspective and how you handle it. So I want to actually, because you're talking about a little bit of struggle there, I want to talk about, so the book frames as a barrier to climb higher. What fear did you have to conquer while you were climbing, making that, like, for the book, The Call of the Climb?
I think the biggest fears I had, so this goes back a number of years, I was still thinking of writing the book, but I was in ministry, but I wasn't happy. And I felt like I want to do something different. But honestly, I just couldn't muster up the courage to do so. And I didn't think of it at the time as like, well, I just don't have courage. I just had all these reasons why, well, that's not a good idea. This reason, this reason, this reason. And so I stayed in it. And, when you are in something like in a not for profit environment, or especially if it's some sort of religious environment where God is involved, then quitting feels really weird. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
quitting on God Almighty. And I even had bosses tell me early in my career, you can't quit. You can't quit this job. It was almost like the being in the gangs of the Crips and the Bloods, right? You can't leave. It
Yeah.
was like, well, you can't quit because you were called into this. And yeah, it can really mess with your head when you're a young man. But as I got older, it was just, there was so much wrapped up into, if I leave, will I be successful? Will I make it? Will I have lost all the influence I have? What will people say? Like, there was so many fears in there. And I remember I had a chance to go down to South America with John Maxwell and his team. And it was just a really cool moment because it was him and I just training people for a whole day. I mean, I was the warm up act, so I knew my place, but still, it was a chance to get to know him. And we ended up having lunch together. And I asked him, how did you know it was time to leave ministry? Because he did the same thing, started a ministry and then created a leadership development company. And he said one time he was out speaking and he was flying back home back to his church. And he just had this feeling like, I don't want to go back. And he knew then that was the sign, like, I have to leave. And as he told me that, I was like, well, I've been feeling that for 5 years, but I hadn't left. Right. So that was the difference between him and I. He was just able to go, this isn't working for me anymore, and I'm going to pivot. Where I was, this isn't working for me anymore, but I have too many fears to actually make a move. And so I'll just stay. And I think my story is actually more the common one, whether it's a job you don't want to leave, a relationship that you can't get yourself up to leave. It could even be a friendship that you feel like I need to leave this, but there's all these other emotions. So a lot of times it's the fear of not leaving one thing to be able to get to the new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that took a Herculean effort on my part to get to that place where I could say, hey guys, I'm stepping down. And even now I look back at it and I was like, geez, man, come on, what is your problem? But back then it was massive.
Did you find also maybe like comfortability too? Like you're comfortable there, and like stepping out of your comfort zone too was a little bit scary? Because like I was also talking the other day, or I think my last podcast, and about how as humans we want to know the outcome of everything, like that. We want to know what is going to happen. That's why we have the Weather Channel. That's why we have, we bet on sports, right? Like, because we start feeling uncomfortable when we don't know what's going to happen. Like, for example, you go to jump out of a plane, you're going to the plane, you're like, oh no, shit, like this is getting real, I'm scared, like this is scary, but then when you go and you finally jump out of the plane, you're like, fuck, what was I scared about? Like, this was a great time, So do you think that that was also maybe a factor?
100% that I didn't want to get out of my comfort zone, although I was out of my comfort zone in a lot of other areas. So
Mm-hmm.
in some ways that can seem confusing. But what I've learned is that more of this actually has to come down with what you believe about yourself. And some of the CEOs that I've got a chance to work with over the last 7, 8 years and coaching them, like some of them are just amazing leaders, so confident and making massive decisions like, hey, we're going to stop running these 5 products and we're only going to focus on this one. Like it's this massive gamble. And I had a chance to talk to one of them and say, like, how do you do that? Like, how do you make these decisions that arguably impact thousands of lives? And especially if you make a mistake. And they're like, well, I definitely mitigate the risk. I definitely think through. It's not like I'm doing it wildly, but at the same time, at the end of the day, there's still going to be risk, but I'm going to make a decision because I know that even if I make the wrong decision, I'll figure it out and I'll make it right. And so much of it is just a confidence in themselves. And that really was, for me, that's what was missing. It was, well, if I quit here and go here and it doesn't work, well, okay, if it doesn't work, I'll find something else that does. But I just wasn't thinking like that. Oh, what if people think differently of you? What if they respect you less? Okay, well, yeah, maybe they will. I'll figure that out or I'll get past that. So I think honestly, I think a lot of rumination, when we're ruminating about a decision,
Yeah.
I think a lot of rumination is just like cover for a lack of confidence or a lack of belief in yourself. So that's Eric, what I've learned over the years. For me, when I struggle to go against my fear, really what's going on, it's not the thing out there that I'm afraid of. It's the doubt in here that I don't know if I'll be okay because I don't believe enough in myself. When you start to change that, when you just start to have that belief of I'll figure it out, I'll be okay, the world opens up for you. It really does.
Yeah, it's like putting those good intentions out. I mean, let's face it, like I don't know how I would even talk to my friends the way I would talk, like I used to talk to myself, like I was my worst critic, I would never even talk to my enemies the way that, like, what would go through my mind, you know what I mean? And as I like changed my mindset, and this is like when I was younger, definitely, right? Like as now as a man, I've learned and changed my mindset, and like you said, things have opened up, and you're putting that good out there. But when I constantly just talk bad, 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 in my head, all like that's what I was doing. I was like a magnet for just shit karma, and it was just coming in. So definitely, I can definitely say that's a huge thing, right? Huge thing, your mindset and how you talk to yourself. And let's
How did you
face it,
get past that? I'm curious. What was the switch for you?
to start not talking bad of myself.
Yeah.
Oh man, it took lots of counseling, lots of counseling. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still do it, you know what I mean? It's human nature, but not as bad. Like I used to beat myself up, beat myself up. But then one day, I was talking to Joey, he was a co-host, and he says that he put post-it notes on his TV, and he said it changed his life. And back then I had post-it notes all down, all good affirmations, and I had 2 big sliding glass mirrors, and I had them covered. You couldn't even see. And besides, when they would always fall off, I'd have to stick them on. And I would read that all the time, and I had it in my bathroom too. And I just kept on flooding myself with just goodness. I'm okay. I'm right. And eventually, you just pick that habit up. I mean, I catch myself all the time, like, oh, I'm an idiot. But then I'm like, wait a minute, no, I'm not. And it's all about now. It's okay if you say it, but catching yourself and changing that, right? And that's where I'm at right now. Is like road rage, man. It's one of the worst things for me. I'm good at a lot of other things, but I will totally admit, like, someone, and it used to really grind my gears because it's just stupidity, right? Because it's dangerous. Like people do a lot of dangerous things, and I have a kid in the car too half the time. So I started saying, thinking like, well, maybe that person is having a bad day. And that's how I started reframing my mindset, So it was like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't flip that guy. Maybe he's having a bad day or something like that, depending on like the circumstances, obviously, right? And that's how it is. You start trying to catch yourself and being mindful for the things that you say, and also maybe someone's just having a bad day and you don't know what they're going through at that time as well, right? So it's just little things that,
Yeah, that's fantastic. Very powerful.
yeah,
There's a section actually in the book about this, about how you speak to yourself.
yeah.
And there was some research. I mean, who knows where they get this, but the average person says 11 negative things a day to themselves, right? 11. So you think about that. So, okay, let's even say that's the case, if that's the average. Well, whether you can completely eliminate that or not, I don't know. But what you can do is exactly what you've done is okay, well, I'm going to flood with positives. Like I will outnumber the negative voices, kind of back to deposits and withdrawals again. One of the actually where I got this idea was from Marissa Peer. So she's
I've heard of Marissa Pierce before.
famous psychotherapist. Anyways, she said, hey, get your phone out and put an alarm on your phone 3 times a day. Let it go off. And when it goes off, you're just going to praise yourself, but something like that you believe in. And it could have just been like, hey, I'm a really resilient person, or I'm a really kind person, even though the barista was in a bad mood, I was still kind, or whatever. And I remember going, okay, I'll try that. And so I did that for a couple of weeks, and I couldn't believe the difference in mood I had. Like my energy was elevated 2 weeks later.
Really?
And I think a lot of it had to do with just speaking positively.
I'm setting alarms after this podcast. I'm setting 3 alarms. I'm going to try this. And here's another thing. I had a guest on, Randy Lehman, great guy. And he also said, actually, I broke my daughter's hairband but he says, put a hairband or elastic around your wrist. And every time you have a negative thought, take it off, reduce that negative thought, say a good thought, and then put it to this side. So it's the action, right? It's the action of taking accountability. And that's another way that he brought to my attention.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I knew that a long time ago. And then I'm not going to lie, I was like, okay, switching. Cause I like I said, I'm still human. I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
And I eventually, to be fair, her elastic hairband was pretty weathered. Right. But then I broke it off. So
yeah. When you can get in the habit of that, one of the things that, and maybe just because I'm older and further down the road, but I have this idea of be firm with yourself, but not hard on yourself. Mm-hmm. And the idea of being firm with yourself, it's like self-leadership. So it's very rare that I'll say something negative, but the odd time, something like, I'll say something really bad, but now it's habitual. As soon as I say that, it's like this other voice comes in. It's like, hey, we don't talk like that around here.
Yeah.
It's just like the parent voice comes in and sets the room back in order. Yeah. And that's being firm with yourself, right? So even when you mess up, you can still be firm with yourself. Like, hey, we're not going to talk like that. Yes, of course, we are going to be better, but we're not going to be like that. Yeah. And that's firm with yourself versus hard on yourself.
Well, even like, I wish, you don't say that. I will, you change your word frames and all that. I'm still learning on that too. Yeah, I mean, it takes time, you know what I mean? And let's face it, man, we're only human, and I'll probably be working on that for the rest of my life, and it's just always it's always a process. Always a process. There's no one out there that's going to be 100%, and be just perfect. Everybody's got a story. Everybody has something, and it's just a matter of tackling it in our own ways, right? And sometimes it takes a lifetime. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes. You know what I mean? It's all depends on the person. I do want to ask you, if someone finished the call to climb with one takeaway that sticks, what would you hope that is?
That you would be determined to take back your life from everyone else's opinions of you, of your early programming that you didn't do, that you would have the courage to take back your life and live it in alignment with your soul, right? That inner part of you that knows you the best. And that takes a lot of courage because the deck is stacked against us in many ways, right? When we want to be authentic with our lives, cue the anxiety, cue the fear, cue all those things, which is partly the subconscious's way of protecting us, right? It thinks it's doing a good thing. But you learn that a lot of times we're not in as much control of our life as we think, that there is a shadow government, as Dr. James Hollis says. There's a shadow government pulling the strings behind us. And only when you can start to become more aware of that, so you can make better choices, intentional choices. So anyway, that's a long answer, but back to
Beautiful
the short
answer.
answer, that you would have the courage to take back your life.
I love it. What was your favorite part of like the whole making the book, putting it together, like to like where we are right now? What would you say was your favorite part?
There were parts, like, actually writing the book was really an emotional experience for me, which surprised me. There were sections I would write, and I would, I'd be in a cafe and I would like stop writing and like wipe tears from my eyes and look around to see if anyone had noticed what's going on. What am I doing?
Yeah.
So there was just maybe it was just a cathartic process of writing this story, that parts of it were my story. I think for me, the creative side, I love creative things, and I didn't know how the story was going to go. I knew the beginning, but I knew the ending, but I didn't know the middle. And it was just really fun to watch that unfold as I was writing. And I was like, wait a minute, I'd like there to be an avalanche in here. How's that going to work in? And I'd like at some point that they go underground or into a cave. How are we going to do that? And so those became actually big parts of the book. That was a fun process. It was literally like sort of watching all that happen.
And then like having something, building like something that's just a thought in your mind to something tangible is just, it's magical too. At the end of the day, it's magical. And like other people get to read it all over the world. And I'm not saying like this is not your first book either, right? This is your second, I believe, right? Because you have the Monday to Minute.
Yeah, 9 Minutes on Monday. That's more like
Or 9 Minutes Monday, sorry, yes.
yeah, that was like me taking workshop that I had done for a few years, and I just turned it into a book. And it in that way it was quite easy to write that. But it's, it's just corporate leadership stuff. Not saying just, I mean, people have liked the book, but this book was so different. Like this is more like, well, it's a story.
Yeah,
And
emotion and stuff.
definitely my heart's more connected to it. At the same time, I'm more ready for, like, yeah, I hope people like it. I believe it's a great book. Compare this book to, like, I think this is a great book, and that's really rare for me to say about anything I created. My first book, when McGraw-Hill called me and said, "Hey, good news, we're going to pick up your book," my first question out of my mouth was, "Did you read it? Like, did you guys even read it?" Because I just thought I suck as a writer. I'm just from a small town. Got lousy marks in English because I didn't try. So when they're like, "We're going to publish your book," I'm like, "Well, did you guys read it?" Because obviously, if you read it, you wouldn't be publishing it. So, and back then, if somebody reviewed it and put a 1 star on Amazon, I'd feel that trigger, like, oh my goodness, maybe they're right. But this book, I feel different. Of course, there's going to be people who don't like it. It's not going to be their thing. There's going to be a bunch of 1 stars here for sure. But this is where I've evolved, right? Where that won't bother me, like literally at all. And I know a bunch of people will really like it. So no, I'm really excited, man. I'm super excited about it.
I'm happy and I'm excited for you, man. It's a huge moment in your life, right? So
Thank you.
You got our supporter on this side, man. Definitely.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
If you mind, this is men's mental health things. You mind if we dive in a little bit of some deep emotional mental health growth stuff?
Nah, please do, man.
Yeah. In chaos, how do you find your stillness and clarity?
Well, when I'm doing good at that, I'll tell you what I do, but I'm not always good at that, right? In those moments. So I sort of look at my life and I think, well, how do I define my life? Whether, like, am I having a good life or not having a good life? And a lot of it is just emotion. It's just a bunch of emotions. And so a while ago, I thought, well, what emotions define a great life for me? And so I wrote down it ended up being these 12 emotions. And I thought, yeah, if I'm mostly these emotions, I think I'm living a good life. But what I realized is that some are more important than others. And so I have 4, what I call anchor emotions. And those are love, peace, meaning, right? So if you think, and gratitude. So those are my 4. So when the house is burning down, right, and there's chaos all around, I ground myself with just those 4. And love to me is just a reminder of who loves me and who do I love, who's special in my life. Gratitude, of course, we talked about that. Meaning, where I can revisit and go, you know what, for the most part, my life has a meaning. I get to do things. I get to help people. That's great. And peace for me comes from trusting God, trusting myself, and that, hey, it's going to be fine. Even if it's not fine, it's going to be fine. And come back to that place, that grounds me, right? Those 4 things. Now, for you, it might be different grounding emotions, But that gives me a focus so that when I notice I'm stressed out or I'm anxious, like I'm not having peace, right? Or I'm complaining about what I have, I don't have gratitude. Or when I feel like I'm being useless, I'm not feeling purposeful and having meaning. So again, I come back to those four, and that could just be, I might just be sitting down and just thinking through all four of them, could be going on a walk. But if I can get back to those four things, now I can rebuild. Sort of like, this dates me, but one of the first Superman movies when they destroyed his home in the North Pole or wherever it was, but there was like this one little blue glowing piece of ice and he could rebuild the whole thing. Those four core emotions, those anchor emotions, that's how I rebuild. It's like when the tornado comes through, those four blocks, let's get those down. Everything else stacks on top of that.
I love that, man. That's awesome. What a great answer. It's so true. And sometimes, you got to reach out to those that, like, say, for like love, how you have love. If you're lacking that a little bit, or then you lean a little bit more over to that side to fill that part of your bucket, man. So I love that. That's awesome. So I know you are in leadership stuff, right? You do leadership stuff. So here's a question. Leadership can feel lonely. How do you safeguard your mental health under pressure?
You have to know those tethers or those anchors for you, whatever they are. So this is going to come back to a couple of things. Number one, the crowd that you hang with. And I'm not talking like the family and stuff like that, but we all need people in our lives who can relate with us, who understand the battle that we're going through. This is why masterminds are so important, or CEOs, hanging out with other CEOs, business owners with other business owners, because I've gone through some tough times in my business where, a recession hits or something, and all of a sudden you're like, I can't pay payroll. And who do you tell that to? Like, I go tell my partner, no. Do I tell my children? No. I go tell my friends. They don't want to hear that. Right. So you need people to be able to go, man, this is what I'm going through right now. And they go, I totally get that. I was there 2 years ago. Hey, whatever. They might offer some advice or they might just listen. So that's one thing, right? It's just having those lifelines to people in similar places. And then I think the other thing is surrounding yourself with inspiration and teaching that fuels you. And this doesn't have to be from people you know. This is why I love podcasts. I love YouTube videos. I'm constantly listening to. It could be Alex Hormozy, and it's helping me with some business advice. It could be Alan Watts, some deep spiritual
Love
thinking.
Alan Watts.
He's amazing, right?
Yeah.
I listen to all these mashups all the time with David Goggins and a bunch of other people. They put all these clips together, and it just lifts me up again. So yeah, maybe there's someone out there that doesn't need any of that, but I do. So I think for people who are in positions of responsibility and they don't have anyone to talk to, because it's who can relate. Yeah, that can be a deadly thing. And then people do crazy stuff. What happened at the Coldplay concert with the CEO and the HR director. Who knows what actually more was behind that? I've come to realize in life is that everyone has a reason for doing stupid things. Definitely. It doesn't make them any less stupid, but there's usually more to the story than we know. And I can just think of my own life, some of the things I've done that I would have never thought I would do, but then you look at what was behind it: stress, pressure, isolation. And those things lead to us acting in ways that we shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Or sometimes you're just not happy, right? And you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, we're humans, man. We all want to be happy. I mean, I don't know one person that just wants to be miserable. I mean, they're out there. People are miserable, don't get me wrong, but do you really want to be like that for your whole life? You want to put a smile on, right? But yeah, no, I agree. I want to ask about the 9 minute of Monday framework. What inspired you though to build that?
I was teaching engagement in the business world, right? So like, how do you engage your employees? How do you get them more motivated? And just the more I studied, I realized, there's these kind of like these common drivers that all the research from 50 years back points to. And I just began teaching them. And over time, I thought I should write these down into a book. So 9 minutes on Monday is a framework where I teach the 9 engagement drivers, right? Care about your people, help them grow, recognize great work. So I won't go through all the 9, but where the 9 minutes on Monday comes in is that once you learn the framework, there's this little template that comes with the book. which is basically 9 questions. And so the idea is when you get to the office or the construction site or wherever you are on a Monday morning, before you get lost in email, before you start doing all your to-dos, you just pull out this checklist and you ask yourself 9 questions. And for each one, you make a small micro commitment. Who am I going to make sure I check in with this week? Who am I going to help grow this week, right? Who am I going to help them feel more purposeful at their job? Who am I going to help feel more autonomous at work? So you just come up with these short micro commitments and then you go and do them. And where it's effective is that it's so small. The steps are so small. People are like, oh yeah, I could do that. And they may not even think that it makes a big difference, but it's the accumulation of the steps over time, right? It's the tiny steps times 60,000 that gets you to the summit of Everest. Well, it's the same as a leader. It really is fundamentals. It's like 6-pack abs, which I don't have, but
Me either.
it's not that I don't know how to have them, but it's the 1,000 steps you got to take to get there, the small steps. So leadership's a lot like that. So that's what 9 Minutes on Monday is. It really is just a simple way to be intentional about how you lead and take the little time that you have, because everyone's so busy. Take the little time you have. It's like, I only have this much time. Where's the most powerful use of these minutes? It's like, it's right here. And so I give you those points. So that's what the book's based on.
Well, what do you think creates such big leadership results with that? What do you think's the main impact? Is it just like you said, over time, you just your mind just adapts to it? You think?
It does. So that's the idea, right? Is that to turn it into a habit, because when leaders are just busy. So we come in and we're like, oh, like, where's this email? How come this isn't done? That can be our mindset, because we're always trying to fix things, make things better. So we have a bias towards what's not working. And that's not wrong. We just have to know that it's there. So, but this goes back to the deposits withdrawals conversation, right? We naturally will withdraw. So this helps create deposits. And why it works is that it helps people focus on the things that we just know from science motivate people, like helping someone feel a sense of progress, right, on a goal. That motivates people. So it's that, but then it's all framed in a way that's so simple that people think, oh, I can do this. And so then they do it. And as they do it over time, then they start to see results. It's a little bit like when they say, hey, if you want to change your diet, just stop eating sugar. Right. And as you stop eating sugar, eventually you stop doing a bunch of other things that you shouldn't do either. It sort of builds, but we've got to start small, and we want to create a habit. That's what's powerful, right?
And then it turns into like a snowball effect, right? One thing leads to another and everything like that. Do you think then that's why leaders struggle to connect with their teams on a human level, is just because they don't apply these into their own habits in their own lives?
It's definitely one of the reasons. Yeah. Because, all the things I talk about in 9 Minutes on Monday are not rocket science. Like even when people go through the workshop, I tell them, like, I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't know. I might give you some of the science behind that you've not heard, but you know that you should recognize your staff, right? You shouldn't micromanage. So this is just that sort of heads up to like, hey, do these things. And it'd be like if someone's walking around with you and just told you what to eat, what not to eat, and like these small things. Well, of course, over time, you're going to have an impact from that. But I think the other piece, Eric, comes down to all of us come into leadership through the same door. We were good at something. We worked hard. People trusted us, respected us enough that they're like, hey, we're going to make Eric, a team lead or manager or whatever the title was. And this is the amazing thing, is that what gets you into leadership doesn't actually get you successful as a leader. Because as a leader, now your success or your scoreboard is actually, are you able to move your people? So you get there on your own, but then from there on, if you're going to be successful, you've got to know how to move people. And there's certain skill to that. And I think this is where a lot of people struggle, because leading people is a bit nebulous, right? It's what would you rather do? Like return this email or go talk to Sally about her bad attitude at the meeting this morning? I'm going to go return the email, right? Because that's easy. But as a leader, I've got to go and deal with Sally. Now, it helps if I have some frameworks and tools and skills on how to manage that conversation. But this is where a lot of people don't get that. They don't get trained. So then they either botch that conversation, or they just don't have it, or they usually botch it first. And then the next time they're like, well, I'm just not going to have that conversation. And now we have workplaces that become, these landmines of toxicity.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, like that goes with even like, and it's I mean, as I was in a supervisor position, and like letting someone go always sucks at the end of the
Yeah.
day, really does. And like how does that affect you, if you don't mind me asking? You like, is it a hard thing, or have you kind of put your feelings aside because it's just business? And I know that's hard. Like for me, it was really hard because I'm an empath, so it really affected me. Depending on, like, I mean, there's severe situations too. Like if it got, you know what I mean, depending on the situation. But most of the time, like it killed me. I felt bad taking food off of someone's family's table, and I could never, draw that line where I turn off the feelings and go business mode. That was probably one of the hardest parts for me,
Yeah.
to say so.
But that also is what makes you a boss that people would want to work for, right?
Yeah.
So I think to answer your question, yes, it's difficult for me. And for two reasons. One is the empathic reason as well, right? Like my error is that I will hold on to people too long, giving them another chance. But the other side of it that is hard is because I have never let anyone go where I didn't feel a part of it was my fault, or like was my
Mhm.
failure. Whether it was or not, I will think, hey, what should I have done differently? How
Yeah.
did I not develop them? How did we not get to this next level? Because most of the people, if you hired them anyways, they're probably pretty good people. And you think, well, I don't want to let them go. But then I have to. And then it's like, what? Like, how did we get here? It's a little bit like when a marriage dissolves or a romantic relationship dissolves, and
Mhm.
the two have that moment where they're like, how did we get here? It's a little bit like that. It's how I feel. Like, yeah, how did we get here? Because I had a part to play in it. So that's how I view it. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
leaders have to think like that,
Yeah.
but I view it like that.
Yeah, it's your own opinion and my opinion, exactly. Everybody's got an opinion and an asshole, so. What's one piece of advice you could give someone stepping into the leadership for the first time?
If you're stepping into leadership for the first time, remember that the influence you want to create, you need influence, right? You need to be able to influence people, but the influence that you want doesn't come from the new title that you've been given. So even though some authority comes with that, you want to grow your influence, and you do that by, first of all, reciprocity, right? The things we've been talking about here: care about people, take an interest in them, like what Eric did. It's hot day, like, let me go get the guys some big gulps or Slurpees or whatever. It's just these little things. You grow your influence by caring about people, because inside all of us is wired this reciprocity. This is why if your friend takes you out for lunch and insists on paying, you only let him if you can do it. You'll say, like, well, only if I can
Mhm.
get the next one, right? It's reciprocity is hardwired into it. So when you care about your staff, they're going to care back with you. And in fact, even if you're not a leader yet and you want to be one day, I challenge people all the time in big companies. I say, go learn 100 names. Go learn the names of 100 people in your company. And it's like, well, why would I want to do that? Because 100 names means 100 conversations. And 100 conversations means at some point, you might stumble over an affinity point. And an affinity point is something that we share in common. Like, for example, Eric and I don't really know each other. I know Eric's from Canada. I was born in Canada. So if we are working together right away, let's say we're both in a different country, but we find out we're both from Canada, we now have a connection. We have an affinity point. And with that affinity point comes a little more trust, which means a little more influence. So that would be the first thing I would say. And then secondly, people also will let you influence them when they see your passion and your commitment to being excellent. So when you tie that in with also being somebody who cares about people, it's really powerful. Like, it's almost like nobody likes the person who's just amazing and pursuing excellence, but they don't talk with anyone. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
they're too good for the rest of us. But when you're that kind of a person, you're just driving for excellence at the same time. You're down to earth. You're like Eric, even using words like, hey, we're just all human. There's that humility. That's amazing. And when you look at some of the work by Jim Collins, when he's in his book, Good to Great, when they looked at the data for the best of the best leaders, they found that the best leaders, what they called level 5 leaders, had this rare combination of personal humility and professional will. So they were driven, like, we're going to climb this mountain, but they had this personal humility that was like, hey, I don't have it all figured out. And if you got input from me, great, give it to me. But we're going to get to the top of this mountain. That's a really powerful combination. So that's what I would say to young leaders. Don't rely on your title. In fact, stay away from your title. Grow your influence through relationships and through your own passion to get better.
I was going to ask you too, is like, how can someone without a title become a leader, be a true leader? But I mean, there you go. You just answered it. You don't even need a title to be a leader. And also, I want to say this is my intake, and I would like to see what you think. I think there's definitely a difference between a boss and a leader. I think a boss will tell you what to do. A leader will ask you what to do. And that's just one of my little snippets. I don't know. What would you say on that?
A boss will tell you what to do. A leader will ask you what to do. Yeah, I think that comes back down to the micromanaging and the not trusting your people, right? So a boss, of course, is just going to be like, look, just do it this way. Which anytime you do that to people, you got to picture yourself reaching into their brain and turning parts of it off, right? I don't need you to think, just do it this way. And we just lost creativity. We lost all parts of them to engage, right? And so obviously there's a time, right? There's a time for that leadership, like the ship sinking. All right, just do what I say, right? Planes going down, but that's rare. And so the other times, I think when you can be more inclusive as a leader, pull people in. In fact, it's one of the ways to help people feel autonomous is pull them in on your decisions. Like you make decisions all the time if you're leaders. Pull them in and be like, hey, I got to go to the executive meeting. I got to give them a report on our department. I'm thinking of talking about this, but what do you think? How should I frame this? And now the boss, you're the boss, right? You're the leader asking them for their advice, shows you respect them. And man, that goes so far. It really is amazing.
So you bring that up, and it just kind of like, that reminds me, I'm a carpenter by trade, a former carpenter. And I would have like my helpers and stuff. And that's what I like. 2 points on this actually is when the super would come up, okay, I need you to build this, blah, blah, blah. He just like a lot of like 90% of the times they just let us build, right? And you can build however you want as long as it holds the concrete in the wall. That's the main goal, right? And it would be nice, I'm building however I want because I got a special way. I like how I like to build, that's my little thing. But then you get other guys that come in like, no, I want you to build it this way, this way, this way, and it really leaves like it takes away, like you said, it takes away. It's almost like I have no hands. And he's like behind me and he's building it and I'm just standing there holding all the material, and that's what it feels like. And then also on the other note is when I had my carpenter's helper, that's what I would do. I'd be like, okay, well, what do you think? How do you think we should build this? And it's involving them, and it's like, I guess it's almost not holding space for them, but you're giving them a reason to speak up and be involved and feel active in the project, and then they can feel proud after they built that and say like, I did that on that, and I made that decision. And sometimes that's huge for people,
Exactly. Because what we're talking about is ownership. Like the best thing you can do as a leader is how can I get my employees to feel like they own this place?
Yeah.
And one time I was in Detroit, I went there to speak. And I'm staying at the Detroit Sheraton, and it's this high rise beside the river. And I went to the gym to work out, and this woman was there, and she's like working furiously. She comes up, hands me a banana, and when I'm on the treadmill, and she was just like so excited. I came back the next day. She's still there, furiously cleaning. And so I thought, I'm going to talk to her. And I said, oh, like, so you work in the gym here? So that was my question. You work in the gym here? And she's like, she said, I own this place. And now she didn't own the place. Like she didn't own the Sheraton, but she said, oh, I own this place. And she said, basically, she just went on to talk about how this was hers. And she had this vision for it. And you can't get people to have vision for something they don't own. This is why people don't want to buy rental cars when they go for sale. It's like, because they haven't been taken care of. So back to the carpentry point and about building houses. Yeah, a foreman can come in and say, I just need you to do it this way. Okay, that can be, they can do that. But what they're losing, right, is they're losing someone's ability to engage, to be autonomous, to own it. And then what you get is a homeowner moving in on opening day and opening up a door and it doesn't open, right? And then it's like, what the heck? And they call the builder and the builder's like, didn't you tell them to do it this way? I told them to do it this way. But the problem was you didn't let them invest their heart in what they're making. And the heart, you need the heart if you're going to have excellence.
Exactly. And like, that's what it is. Like, I love being a carpenter. I love having my hands on. I can drive through Vancouver and be like, I built that, I built that, I built that. I'm that dad, you know. My dad is like, oh, come on, dad, you built everything. But I mean, it's proud, you know. I'm proud to be able to, and I used to say I'm building Vancouver one nail at a time, right? Because I was a carpenter. And I was proud, you know, and I'm giving people's homes, giving people homes to live in, you know, and they're going to have family and their families are going to grow up in these places, you know, and it's just a magical thing that I thought was just amazing, you know, giving back. But this time in my life now, like I said, I'm trying to step away. It doesn't fill my bucket anymore. I want to do something more mental health, help people. I'm trying to work that out right now. You know, it's I mean, there's so much out there. It's just I got to find what direction I want to go in, and then there's no holds bars. But yeah, I mean, the carpentry stuff was fun. I enjoyed it, but you know, and I learned a lot about leadership and stuff too, and that's huge. That's huge.
This is part of your path, though. I mean,
Yes.
what you're doing with Raw Minds, right? This is part of your path. This is going
Yeah.
to lead to something else. This is going to lead to a different door open, and
Mhm.
then you're going to go into a way to help people that other people can't because of the background that you have,
Yeah.
right? So it's a little bit like me going into corporate America, but from a
Mhm.
ministry background and a small town farmer kid, right? So but that's actually a really unique combo that I
Mhm.
bring a message that not many people bring. So this goes back even to us following our heart, our soul, and that authenticity, right? Trusting that your path is accumulated some amazing gifts that now you can
Mhm.
help out other people. So I'll be curious, Eric, to just watch how this path unfolds for you. I think it's
Thank you, man.
amazing.
And that's vice versa. And I want you're more than welcome to come back on here anytime. You're fucked now, man. You're part of the Raw Minds family. So
Love to, man. Love to. And lots of stories to
yeah.
share for sure.
I do want you to plug everything again. I want you to just to get it out there again, whatever you want to plug, you know, in your book, and you can show your book. And I want you to make sure everybody gets a hold of that. Definitely.
Appreciate that. Yeah, if you're a leader and you want to grow as a leader, check out our main site at jamesrobbins.com. But if you're just looking for how can I live a more authentic life? How can I follow the path I feel like I'm supposed to follow and not give in to fears? Then yeah, pick up a copy of the Call to Climb. Actually, it just came out, so
Hell
a
yeah.
bunch of people started receiving the books today, which was ahead of schedule. So I hope you like it.
Awesome.
Come say hi on LinkedIn or anywhere and let me know that you heard this on Raw Minds.
Hell yeah. And you can find the description in the bottom. And James, again, man, thank you so much. And you're welcome to come back. I would love to catch up a little bit later down the road and see how you're doing, man. So this is home for you from Vancouver here, because I know you're Canadian. So
Yeah, a
you're
UBC
welcome.
grad for sure.
There you go, man. There you
All
go.
my family's still back in BC, so I'm there.
Awesome. Well, let me know sometime, man. We'll go for a coffee. I'd
I
love to
will,
shake
man.
your hand in person.
You're on the list now. You're on my Vancouver list.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Well, on that note, I want to say thank you for everybody listening. If you like what you heard here, you know, leave a comment, smash the like, subscribe, follow, share it, do all those things. It helps a long way for both of us too, you know, you're over here, sorry, for both of us, right? So, but on that note, I just want to say thank you, everybody. You guys have a good night, and thank you, James, again, once more. Take it
See
easy.
everybody. Yeah, thanks, Eric.
Bye. Perfect.